most of it anyhow. I can get most of it swept up.
I was gonna say I should have filmed from the other direction so that you could see all the dust streaming in the sunlight.
You'd say, no wonder it's always so dirty.
Dirty out here in the workshop. But it's a little hard to contain sawdust.
Yeah.
Especially when you're taking something down enough to try to make it fairly smooth. I should have had some video from when you first pieced it together and those grooves there
They got big.
don't hardly exist anymore.
Would have had a big sanding table in here that ran this right through it.
Yeah. But we do what we gotta do. And for about $80 worth of material, it's gonna look really good. So,
Okay.
well, I was trying to figure out, I can't remember if we talked about staining it or I talked about just putting a fabric cloth over it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
That's what's up to you.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I could maybe seal it, but and that was just a few minutes worth of dusting, or a few minutes worth of sanding, I mean. So it took it down a pretty good amount. And then we haven't quite got the shelf under there yet. But we'll be getting a shelf under there and making a nice desk.
I gotta get a couple more 1x4.
Yeah. All right, it's gonna be a good size.
Well, that one's still a little rough.
Yeah.
That one could use a little more.
I don't know. Maybe I will stain it. I gotta think about this some more.
We're going clear down, right?
Yep. And set it up. And then back toward me. A little bit more. There. Okay. I came apart again. Oh, no. Yeah, it did come apart. Okay. What a bunch of junk. Yep. I'll move my machine over and move my ironing station over and I don't know what else. Move my toolbox under the table, fill it with all the stuff. Oh, I don't know why that's there. All this stuff. Not that stuff. Those things. Okay, let's see if we can get this cleaned up and organized. So this is one of my sewing kits. It's got miscellaneous extras of thread spool holders and junk drawer of tools. So it's not really my sewing kit necessarily, but there's some sewing stuff in it. Actually, it's a little dusty. I think I'll put this down here. And then I can sit down and get into it. Okay, so how to organize. Don't need this right now. These things should head over this direction once I get my sewing machine moved. First thing to figure out is probably going to be the iron. So, my big ironing board is over there. So I kind of want to keep it to this side, even though I'm right-handed when I'm sewing and then I want to go to iron something. It would actually be better if it was over here, but ironing board's over there. So I'm gonna set this up for my ironing station right here. So got my ironing pad. And then what? So my cord comes out this way. I think I'm gonna run it underneath the desk. Hopefully I've got enough cord to reach to my extension over here. Hopefully can move under the desk. So in theory, I should be able to put that right about there and still be able to grab it. Maybe more like that. Be able to grab iron. Okay, so underneath, if I put it over the shelf, I'll have more cord. Set that out there. Let's go ahead and move my extension table. You're probably going to see that it's a little dusty around here. I have to adjust my feet. Yep, I'm gonna have to adjust my feet a little bit. I'm going to have to find a little something to sit underneath. little something else. Okay. Store that under there. Actually won't hopefully need this, because now I'm going to be able to put out a bigger cutting board. Ugh, should have cleaned up. So dusty. Phew. Very dusty. Ugh. That marks from my machine too. Okay, so I think this side's going to be my cutting board. Get rid of some of my junk over here. Not really junk, scraps. Well, and needles. Okay, so now that I have myself a little bit organized, I am going to start on a quilt that's going to be very similar to the one I did last week. So I've started with a layer cake. I've done 10 4 patches that I'm sewing together. And so I will have 5 units all together then that I'm going to cut diagonally. And that's the same procedure that I did last week. But from there, I'm going to change it up a little bit. So we'll have a very different quilt at the end. Altogether, I had 5 sets of blocks. So 4 of them actually match, or I should say 4 of them had 2 sets. So like these are the same print, but this 5th one actually has these does the same print, and then these 2 as different colors. But the reverse of it has 2 sets of the same print. So this particular piece I'm going to go ahead and cut up and not do the next step. But for this one and the other 3, I'm actually going to sew these together. And I really like the pinwheel effect, but I think once I get it sewed together, I'm still going to continue with what I was thinking of doing and cutting this into a scrappier, I think probably 4 pieces, maybe 5. I haven't quite figured that out yet, so I got to sew it together first, and then I'm going to decide exactly what my length and width is. Right now I think it's 27, but I'm not 100% sure until I get it sewn together and ironed down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will decide whether I like them all as pinwheels and I'm just going to keep them as pinwheels, or if I'm going to continue on with the cutting that I think I'm going to do. Alright, well from here I'm going to try one more cut just because I want to make it a little bit more scrappy. I'm really kind of curious how this cut's going to change things. So, and actually I'm not sure if I want to leave those 4 blocks in that same configuration. I'm a little wondering, because I see some of the same fabrics in the bottom 2 blocks, and so I'm thinking maybe I will switch something around. We'll see. So the change I'm going to make to this particular top is going to be to do another cut. And my blocks are a little not necessarily tremendously even. I think I've gone a little bit wonky with the cutting the bias. It's stretched just a little bit, but I think we'll be okay. So what I want to do here is actually cut 5 inches out of the center. So I need to find my exact center mark here, which hopefully, let me check the other side and make sure my seams are matching. Okay. And then I'll put my 2.5 on the very center. And then I'm going to cut out a 5-inch piece. I know, part of me says, why cut a perfectly good block? I could have just ended it right there. Ooh, and I think I just moved slightly. This is when I need a rotating mat. Okay, so I cut exactly 5 inches out of the center. And now, well, my real plan is to mix them all up, but because all that's going to happen if I try to flip it around in this same block is you're sewing together the exact same thing. So, as you see, I did just flip that over. It's a pinwheel, so it's exactly the same thing. So I'm going to cut the other blocks, and what I'm going to do is actually replace this piece with some of the other, like switch them around in the 4 blocks. So, and I may actually do a little bit more of a cut too, because it's going to be just like a 1/4 of an inch off the seams if I leave it like this, but if I cut like another 2 inches out of this, it'd be quite a ways off, so it would be a design choice at that point. If I sew a strip in here right now, it's going to look like I couldn't match my points up, because it's going to be just within a 1/4 of an inch of, you know, of matching up exactly. So yeah, I could just trim a bit more off of them, like both sides, and then it'll make it a little bit smaller, but I'll probably try to do some sashing or borders, something like that. Alright, so I've cut out the centers of my pinwheels. Sorry, I almost said 4 patches. My pinwheels, I cut out the centers of the pinwheels, and then I actually swapped them out amongst the different blocks. So I think I've kind of come up with a little cool design here. And I opted for not cutting any more off of the other panels here, just because I said that it would be a 1/4 of an inch difference. I was not thinking it's actually a 1/2 inch difference. And so it just kind of matches up here across the center, but then there's about a 1/2 inch difference right there, you know. So it's enough of an offset that it doesn't seem like I accidentally missed the point. So if it were a 1/4 of an inch, it would have read a little bit more like, hey, you can't get your points to meet up, which I can't. I struggle with that a little bit, but I don't worry about it too often. And in this particular case, I kind of like the design, so I'm going to go with it. Now, I did know that I would need to replace a piece in the center for the fact that I have a 1/2 inch seam, you know, an inch seam in this block and an inch seam in that block. And so in order to make it the width that I want it to be, which is hopefully equal to this other one that I did last week, maybe a little bigger, I'm not actually going to put these two together. I kind of had the thought of making one in the back, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make them separate quilts. But anyhow, I do want this one to still be about that same width. So in order to do that, I want to put a strip in between these 2 blocks. So I was, for some reason, thinking that I was going to need 4. I don't know why, but for some reason I thought I needed 4. And so I sewed the strip with a block from the other quilt here, but I don't like it. It is too much of a different red for this quilt. You know, this is has more of an orangey tint to the red. And hopefully you're able to hear me. I just realized that I've been talking, looking the other direction. I'm trying to work on that, but hopefully I do better from here on out. So yeah, so I want to replace this red piece right here. And because I had thought that I needed 4 strips, I actually have plenty of the other 2, the white piece and the red and white piece. So I just need to do some seam ripping and fix those before I assemble the entire quilt here. So that's what I'm going to do.